Well, welcome to those that are online and those gathered here in our worship center as we continue our journey through the Old Testament. Tonight we're in chapter 16 to 24. And the fact is, just a reminder, this is the last class of the year. As many of you know, that my wife will have surgery on Monday, and Tuesday we'll be in the hospital. I'll be at the hospital with her in Richmond. It's nothing major, but it's women's surgery. In fact, it's just hopefully she's getting some repair work done from having babies over in the past. So, because of that, I won't be able. It's almost impossible for me to be in two places at the same time, and we all know our first priority is for our family on that. So we will begin, I think, the third week of January. The question was just asked if we can move the time to 6 p.m., and the majority agree with that. That is no problem with me at all to move to 6 p.m. That'd be actually fine with me. Shortens my day a little bit, and the fact, so we can do that. And handouts are right here. And so I will. If that's agreeable, we will move that. If anybody online has a problem with that, please email me and let me know.
I can't do 6, but that's fine. We'll just watch it later.
Okay, well, I don't say if we have one who can't, and the fact, so it's just see how we work this through. Yeah, because I forgot Julia comes from Williamsburg, so it is a challenge. Handouts are up front to people coming in right now, and the sign-in sheet. So come up and grab one and get seated. And that as we begin. So as we begin, let's review where we left off. For those who were here last week and those who have been catching up online, or those that are online, we're blessed. We have about 40 people online right now. That number has grown. And the fact we're blessed with that, you'll see over time we'll be bringing enhancements to what's online, to what we're doing here. And the fact is, as I learn more and put things together, and as we work with this technology to keep people connected. But we left off, Moses and Aaron had gotten the people out of Egypt. He led them out of Egypt. God overcame, God showed his witness and showed his power to the fact that he showed it to the Egyptian gods, but he showed it to the Egyptians, and he also showed it to the Israelites, because they're going, who in the heck are you? Who is this God? They may have been grown up and for 400 years being in slavery. They would have known they may have known who Joseph was and heard about Joseph. Oh, if just Joseph was still alive, but that's 400 years ago. And Joseph was a descendant of Abraham, and through Joseph's father Jacob, the covenant it's been passed down. The promise of the fact that they will multiply. What they see themselves multiplying, because there's almost 2 million of them, right? And the fact, but they're not seeing where's this promised land that we heard about, and who is this God that made this covenant with us? And so God is revealing himself to them. Well, now Moses has got them across the water. The Pharaoh's army has been destroyed. They're in new territory. Moses knows, and Moses would know more, because remember, Moses had fled 40 years earlier. So this territory he would have known in the wilderness. It was not an easy place for them to be. So he's beginning, him and Aaron are going to have to lead them on this journey. So let's begin. And the first question is, I asked you all last week, what do they need for him to lead them into where they're going? And the fact is, you need 4 things. First, you got to feed them, right? This is not like, they're not going to have, fishes and loaves. This is not Jesus standing there on the side with, 5,000. There's 2 million. And you got to feed 2 million people. How much food would that take? How many food line Kroger's and Harris Teeters, et cetera, that would have to sit out there in the Walmarts for them just to be able to feed that many people? So that's, they have to overcome that. And we know it's roughly, I say 2 million. Remember, there was roughly 600,000. What's in Scripture, it says that there's 600,000 men of fighting age are being brought out, and that's that. But we know, and later in Numbers, we're going to get there, we're going to count them, and that's be 603,550 men of fighting age. Well, if you got 603,550 men, how many women are you going to have? It's not an all-boys society. So the fact there's going to be 603,500 women, roughly, because we see that in our birth records today. We can sit there and say, I want all boys. Well, if everybody else has had girls, if everybody else has had boys, somehow you're going to have a girl. It's just the way somehow, God has made it so it all fathoms out. But you got those, and we learned a little bit about families. For this to get to this number of people, I think the average woman would have had 9 children. 6 of them would survived. So how many kids are younger than 18 years of age and younger? Then how many are there older? If you live till you're 5 years of age, you most likely lived to your adulthood unless you got hurt in an accident, ate the wrong food, did all the wrong things. So you have all these other ones that are older. So that's why we say there's roughly 2 million people that they're being let out. Well, you got to have water for them, right? So they have to find water, so they got to sustain them as they travel. They have plundered Egypt. They hear the death of all these families of the Egyptian families lost their firstborn sons, and the fact in here they're asking, can we have some of your gold and silver? And God made them favorable for that, and they gave them that. Here, take that. But God made them so favorable that it says we know they plundered them. Oh, well, I like that. Well, that's a nice clock. That's a nice this. I'll take this. And they just packed all that up and walked away with it. So they're carrying all that. Now, if you're they're going into a foreign country's place, wouldn't that be a prime target to go and capture them? Go get rid of them, just wipe them out, and just take all that plunder they have. You become a wealthy army if you did that. And lastly, they need leadership. Can Aaron and Moses lead 2 million people? I mean, they need a big microphone, and that staff needs to get really big, right? For them to do that. They're going to need leadership to make this happen. So God has a plan. That's the most wonderful thing. God has a plan, and God's been working on his plan of salvation, and it's all coming together. In this scripture today, you're going to see God will invite the Israelites to keep his covenant and become his treasured possession. I want you to hang on to that. There's a reason for all what this is. Everything we're doing today has to come back to what this is being said. So, food. We know the fact the whole Israelite community came out of Elim, came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month. That is 1.5 months since they have come across the Red Sea. They have been out of country. They're in this new country in 1.5 months. Now, if you were freed, your first month was probably a big party, right? Yay! We're all free. We're all free. By the 45th day, you're going, this is reality, and we're stuck out here. And they're not in a Motel 6 here. I'm living in a tent. I'm living on the ground. So they're already starting to grumble. And they grumbled against Moses and Aaron. They said, if only we have died of the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat, they're hungry. They haven't eaten. They're going, we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. I sent my son down to 7-Eleven. He got me snacks. We went over to Dunkin' Donuts and got donuts, and we had anything we wanted. But you had brought us out here into the desert to starve this entire assembly of death. Grumbling is just beginning. They will grumble for 40 years. And that's why they'll be grumbling for 40 years, because they're grumbling about everything. Then the Lord said to Moses, they were hungry. So the Lord said to Moses, he says, Moses, I'll rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them. God's going to test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. Do they know God? So God is beginning to take care of them, and in the fact he's going to test them. Are you listening to me? On the sixth day, they had to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on any other days. Well, God is providing the food. This is so we got food provided for, and we'll see more of this as you go. So he will go out there and talk to the Israelites and tell them to go out in the morning, and you'll pick up. God is going to provide this for you. So he's telling them on that. Then the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them at twilight you will eat meat. God's going to provide meat for them. It's in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am Lord. God is revealing himself to them, right? And he's saying to Moses, tell them, me doing this for you will know that I am the God that you witnessed that got you out of Egypt, that I am the Lord God. I am I am your creator. I am who you should be paying attention to. And that evening, quail came and covered the camp. All they could eat, right there. And in the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. And then when dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared in the desert floor. Kellogg's got the idea for frosted flakes here, I think, right? When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, Manu, Manu, what is it? What is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it is bread the Lord has given you to eat. Manu is what you may call manna. So manu is what they're saying. And this is the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. We'll find out a little bit what an omer is in a couple of seconds. So you get to go out and collect some. And they did it. They told us some gathered some little, and some gathered much. Some just got as much as they could get. But the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered too little did not have too little. Everything they had gathered, just as much as they needed. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our daily bread. Give us what we need. And God will provide what we need. Not too much, not too little. So we see that in our own today, just as what God is revealing to them, and we understand that. Then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. He's giving them instructions. He's testing them, right? Instruction 1, go out and collect. Go collect it. Number 2, no, do not eat all of it. Don't keep any of it until morning. You think anybody would have kept some till morning? Well, God said all they heard was wah, 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 right? They weren't paying attention. So some of them paid no attention, and they kept it in the morning, and it was full of maggots and began to smell. Each morning, when everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much. They gathered 2 omers. Well, omer is about a gallon, so they got 2 gallons. It's just a volume measure of gallons. We're going to talk about bushels and pecks on the next page. I mean, how many times have you gone and bought a bushel or something? Probably not. We just don't do it anymore. Or give me a peck of this unless you go to a farmer's market. Well, you can translate that into a gallon measure, and you know what a gallon jug looks like. That's about how much they filled up volume-wise. So 2 omers would be that. He said to them, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So this is, what did God do on the 7th day? After 6th day, the 7th day he rested. What are we supposed to be doing? We will talk. We'll see. So it says, so bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save it, whatever it is, and keep it until morning. So what you do, again, this is where we're seeing work done the night before. Get it all ready, just like your grandmother used to do. Get everything ready. Put it in the oven on Sunday morning as you were heading to church. So you got home, it would be warm and ready to take out of the oven and begin to serve a meal. And that's what for us old folks, we remember that. That's what it used to be. For the younger generation, we go. What restaurant is open? Right. But he's giving them instructions of what to do. Oh, a second, I jumped right. Yeah. So the people of Israel called the bread manu. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. And Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna, manu, and keep it for the generations to come so that you can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought it out of Egypt. Take a jar and put an omer of a manu in it. Well, you'll find out later. You may have read ahead. You'll know what you're going to do with that jar. But this God is telling them to do certain things. So he's testing them and asking them to do that. Now, if you're going to eat bread that tastes like coriander seed and tastes like wafers of honey for breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 365 days a year for 40 years. They don't know it's 40 years yet. You think it get kind of old, right? Yeah, I wonder, we have a cookbook here in the church that we've had several we've made over the years. I wonder if they had a cookbook. How to make manu 150 ways, That's about what you would think about. Yeah, how you doctor it up, So again, you see an omer is 1/10 of an epath. I run to the store and say I want an epath. I'm not going to get one. But an epath is probably 1 bushel or 4 pecks, 32 quarts in a bushel. Roughly 3.2 quarts, approximately 1 gallon is what you're getting for an omer. So that's what it's telling you. So that's where we're getting these measures. Well, the second thing they need is water, right? You can eat, but if you don't have water, you can go without food for a longer period of time. But if you're going to go without water, especially 2 million people on the march, you can only go a couple days, 3 days or 4, before people start falling out. And people, the older and the younger are going to need more than that. So the whole Israelite community set out to the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink, so they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to test? The Lord is showing, he's been showing you everything that he's providing for you, but you're testing him every time you turn around." But the people were thirsty for water, and they began to complain again. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" You can hear them saying this. So here they are on the journey. And so we were in Moriah, and the fact that we're following the traditional route, and this is what this is following, the traditional route. So we're taking the southern route called the traditional route. So they've traveled from there. They're now in Rephidim. So that's where they've gone. It's about an hour and a half drive, but it's going to be a several day journey to get there. And so Moses cries out, "What am I supposed to do with these people?" And he says, "Go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand and the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go." Well, there's 2 purposes here. And the fact he's saying, take some of the elders, the leaders of your community. And Moses and Aaron have been doing everything, right? So now God is telling Moses, "Well, get some of the leaders to come with you up here. And I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and the water will come out of it, and the people will drink it. So God is going to make sure they can provide water. They're going to lead you from, I just went out of my head, oasis to oasis, places where water is. An oasis, you're going to be a well in the center of it, and you're going to go travel from oasis to oasis in the desert area to be able to provide the people. And not always water will be good. An oasis can be there and you can have bad water that you can't drink. But so God is going to tell him to quit your quarreling, throw a piece of wood in here, and all of a sudden the water will be good. And so he called this place Massa, testing, and Meribah, quarreling. So this is where again God is testing him at that. And is the Lord among us or not? So then they're beginning to be introduced. Well, the third thing, you need protection. And the Amalekites came out and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of the men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. Who is Joshua? Joshua is a young man at this point. He's young, leading the soldiers. Lead the young men that will become the soldiers of the Israelites. Joshua, we will see later down the road, when Moses will not be allowed to take them into the promised land, Joshua will be the one leading them there. So you're going to see you're starting to see the beginning of the leadership and the things that will take place. Okay, well, yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. So Moses went up on top of the hill with Aaron and Hur. And as long as he was holding the staff over his head, he was first stood up there like he stood and held the staff up over his head. And as long as he was holding it over his head, Joshua and the Israelites were winning. But have you ever held something over your head? How long can you hold it? Not long. So Aaron and Hur said, sit down, Moses. Sat down. They're standing on either side he sit down on a rock. So they say, hold the staff above your head, and they're standing on each side of him, holding it, helping him keep it up over his head. So that's how they win the battle. But they see again, God provides. So the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to remember. Make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely block out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Who are the Amalekites? Remember Esau? These are his descendants. And this is what Moses built an altar and called it the Lord is my banner. He said, because hands were lifted up against it, the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. So that God is standing up against those who are against him. Well, the next thing that happens, you're going to need leadership, right? Well, we read in there that now Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people in Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Everything that has happened in Egypt will be told throughout the land. We will find later when we enter the promised land, and they begin to take over cities, etc. They'll come into the city, and there you will have I can't think of the prostitute's name. They will be there. They will get there, and they'll say, I have heard of the great things about your people and what God has done. So this is being told and shared. But Jethro did not show up until after he came afterwards. Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, and to his wife, and his father-in-law Jethro had received her with her 2 sons. Well, we will see Moses have problems in his own household. So, and Zipporah, remember, she's that tiny little thing. That's what her name means, tiny. So here, mom and dad's in the room. Have you ever had your child knock on your door? I'm coming home. And Jethro's going, no, you're not. what are you doing here? And the fact, so, but she's trying to come home. Well, Moses was so mean. And the fact, and he's like, no. So he's packing her back up and bringing her back to back to Moses, and that's what we're seeing. They had 2 sons, and we learned that earlier. I had Gershom because became a foreigner in a foreign land. And remember, a foreigner or an alien, depends on your translation, is someone who lives within another people's, but they have all the same rights. So Moses had all the rights of the Midians. He had all the rights of the people he lived with. But he was an alien / foreigner. He was not a stranger. He was the difference. And his other one was named my father. God was my helper. Is Eliezer. Eliezer is his other. So that's what is knowing all these Hebrew names mean something. It's just like our names. We look them up, but they have a meaning to them. So Moses' father-in-law came together with Moses' sons and wife, came to him in the wilderness. He said, come on, I'm taking you back. And we will see this happen again. And Jethro sent word to him, I'm your father-in-law, Jethro, I am coming to you with your wife and 2 sons. So Moses went out and greeted him. So they reconciled, and he caught his father-in-law up all the wonderful things that had taken place and told him all those stories. Now, Jethro was delighted to hear all that. So Jethro comes out and says, now I know that the Lord is greater than all the other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly. Remember, Jethro is a priest of Midian. He is most likely worship Baal and a couple other gods we will see later over and over again, but Jethro is beginning to recognize this, how great our God is, Yahweh is. Well, the next day, Moses got up and took his seat to serve as judge of the people. And there stood around him from morning till evening were people, just lines and lines and lines of people coming to him for every single problem. And his father-in-law saw that, what he was doing, and he said, what is this you're doing for the people? Why do you sit alone and judge them? They're coming to you and going, I went to get some water, and JC got in front of me. He cut in line. I went over that, and Tara got more food in the morning than I got. And, and so he's trying to judge all those little things. He's trying to, So there's just people after people after people. It's like, wait a second, what are you doing? So it's because the people come to me and seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it's brought to me, and I decide between the parties whom that God decrees in the instructions. So he's trying to tell them all that. Well, Jethro gives them that you must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. You need to step back and go back and pull yourself back. You need to bring the ones that need to go before God. God doesn't want to find out that, someone cut in front of someone, or someone did this, or someone took more of this, or someone said a bad word, or were mean to you, or whatever, and those kind of things. God doesn't want that brought to him. Jethro's giving him very wise instructions. He says, select capable men of all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. So there's a whole hierarchy going to be set up of leadership, and you go up the chain. It's like you come, pastor, pastor didn't answer the question right. You run to the DS. DS didn't answer right. You run to the bishop. You just keep going up, right? You do that in your corporate. You do that in a company. You go to the manager. Got to get the assistant manager first. I want the manager. No, I don't. Give me the regional manager. Give me the. You keep going up, right? This is the same thing. You put the leadership in place, and that's what you have to have that. And have them serve as judges for all the people at all times, but have them bring their very difficult cases to you. So this is what we'll see from this point on, this leadership being put in place and the structure there. So Moses listened to them, and he appointed capable men, etc. So we see that. Now, they're in Rephidim, and we see here, then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain of said, so I skipped from that. On the first day of the third month, I've jumped ahead. I'm sorry. We were here. He appointed leadership. We go here in the fact. So we're now on the first day of the third month after the Israelites left Egypt. We are exactly 90 days since they crossed the water. They are there. They came to the desert of Sinai, and after that they set out from Rephidim. They entered the desert of Sinai in Israel and camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. We know they're going to Mount Sinai. I will show you on this map where we think where they think traditionally thought it is, but in the same map you see other possible locations. Because there's arguments about which of these mountains is really the Mount Sinai. So Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I have carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." So they have left Rephidim. It's about another hour and a half, 2 hours. You can see where the question mark is, whether we roughly think this is the mountain that we're talking about. But you see other triangles down there, and those are all other possible Mount Sinais or Mount Horebs. So that just gives you a rough idea where that is. But we're following the traditional route. We're following the story. So we're staying with the story. In Bible study, when you start getting really nitpicky down into things, you start doing textual criticism and other kind of historical criticisms and things like that. And you're looking for the archaeological evidence. All those things are there. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations this is what I want you to remember. Listen to this really again. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possessions. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Up until now, Abraham was given an unconditional covenant, right? I will make a great nation of you. There is no, I'll make a great nation of you if. It is, I will make a great nation of you. But this covenant has that condition: if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. So that's really, I want you to pay attention. What is God trying to do? Why did God wait 400? Are we talking about why wait 400 years? He needed a group. He needed to create his kingdom and here on earth. He can't do it with 73 people. So 2 million people, you can. So now 2 million people is going to make a great nation. So now he's listened. They've been grumbling since day one. And the fact, so if they obey him, he's going to do wonderful, wonderful things for them. And make him not only his treasured possession, but be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. What do we have in our dollar bill? One nation under God. We try to be a holy nation. As Christians, what are we? We are a part of the priesthood of all believers, right? We are the priests. All of us are priests, not just me. We're all priests. But this is what Jesus brought us here. God is trying to take people who have no idea who God is. They're trying to learn who God is. So he's bringing this unconditional covenant to them. So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words that God had commanded. So now he has a larger group of elders. He is bringing his leadership there. And the people all responded together. We will do everything the Lord has said. So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to come to you in a dense cloud so that the people will hear me. Would you want to hear God? I always tell jokes and stuff about the ones praying to win the lottery, etc. And, oh, Lord, let me win the lottery. Lord, let me win the lottery. If I just win the lottery, my life will be good, etc. And finally God speaks to him. Could you buy a ticket? That's what we want God to say. Why don't you buy a ticket? I'll make your life really good. But we want to hear God on that. But they are going to hear God. God's going to come before them on the mountain. So Moses told the people it said. So God tells them, go back and go tell your people, I'm coming. I'm going to come on the mountain. Go to the people and tell them to consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready the third day. Clean up, get ready, put on your best, wash your clothes, get ready. Because the day of the Lord will come down the Mount Sinai in sight of all the people, put limits on the people around the mountain, tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. So God's going to come, but don't try to run up it. Don't try to go get near it. Stay back. I know, so stay back. Don't try to get there. Don't try to get on the stage. Just like you went to a concert. Don't try to go get near God. Stay back. In this way, if you went there, if you went and put your foot on the mountain and tried to climb up the mountain, they are to be stoned or shot with arrows, and not a hand is to be laid on them. Take them off the mountain. Pull them away. Either stone them to death or shoot them with an arrow. God is making really harsh punishments. Do what I say to be done, because they don't know who God is. Only do that, no person or animal shall be permitted to live. Only when the lamb's horn sounds a long blast, may they approach the mountain, but don't go up it. The ram's horn, where do we first hear the ram's horn? What did Abraham do with his son? He tried to, he's going to sacrifice him. What did they find caught in the ram? What did I tell you about the ram's horn? Even in Jewish festivals today, they blow the ram's horn as the start of festivals, etc. Because this is God's, this is a symbol like we're becoming before God. So, I think Moses goes down and tells us to prepare yourselves for the third day and abstain from sexual relations. I always loved it. Moses, God didn't say that, but Moses adds that in. So I love that. On the morning of the third day, there was a thunder and lightning with a thick cloud from the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. What would you do? Be just like them, right? You'd be trembling with fear. You're seeing this. You come up on this quiet mountain. You see the fog and the smoke and everything else coming on, begin rolling down on top of it. That thick cloud, and you hear this loud trumpet, and everything is shaking. That's the presence of God coming. That power you're seeing. So they led the people, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. So there they are at the foot of the mountain. So they took this Polaroid, and that's what you show you. That's what we show you. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it like in fire. The smoke billowed up like the smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. And he sounded like James Earl Jones. No. I make you laugh on this because I want you to, because that helps you think, remember these things, and what is being told to you. The Lord ascended on top of the mountain and called Moses at the top of the mountain. So Moses went up. And God said to him, go down and warn the people so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them will perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, so the Lord will break out against them. And Moses said to the Lord, people cannot come up to Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set us apart as holy. So Moses is reminding God, this is what you told me to do. And the Lord replied, go down and bring Aaron up with you. So that's what we see Moses coming down, getting Aaron. But the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. So he goes down and gets Aaron and comes back up. There he gives them what we call the 10 Commandments. And I tell you, you'll see on here, and it's in your notes in front of you, the 10 Commandments are a set of biblical principles relating to ethics and worship that play out a fundamental role in Judaism. Are these commandments the fact that or is God inviting the people, I'm leading you out, I am going to make you my people? That's what we said, right? If you'll become the priest of a great nation, I'm testing you. I'm now giving you instruction, and this is how you are to live. If I told you, at Susanna Wesley, we always come in lime green clothes because that's our principle. It's not our law. It's what we use to define who we are. That's what God is giving these principles to them. We call them commandments because they are commands. But it's not, I want you to think about, when we talk about posting these on the school wall, we got to get the 10 Commandments posted everywhere so our children will know. Well, as we read them, I want to ask you some questions. Will our children know these things don't really mean anything because we don't live by them? Because we don't. Why would we post them on the wall? We don't live by these 10 principles. We should, but we don't. So God is telling him, says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery, out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. So God is telling through Moses and Aaron, remind the people, this is who I am. Remind them that I am your Lord your God. I am Yahweh. I am the Lord of Lords, King of Kings. I am your creator. I am the one that led you out. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them and worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. We will see these words used by the Jewish nation later in justifying why someone is the way they are. They were born with a defect or etc. because it must have been your parents or grandparents had done this and you're being punished. Is that what God is saying? He's saying if you hate me, if you don't do what I'm doing, yeah, you're going to be punished. I'm inviting you, the Israelites, this community coming out, but showing I will show love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments, who live by my principles. We have how many principles today? What are they? Love God of all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love thy neighbor as thyself. The Israelites had been in Egypt. What did they worship? What did they help build? There was 80 to 100 or more different gods in Israel. Depends on the number. I put 100 in your list last week, and there's probably more than that of different gods that they would have been familiar with. And many of those gods had images. Horus was the sky god, the falcon, right? They saw, that's how they represented him. Now people, you're not supposed to worship the actual falcon, but people did. You wouldn't bow down to the falcon, but people did. So that's what they were there. So you saw that. Another god that we will see again, Hathor, the protector, love, beauty, music, dancing, fertility, and pleasure. Hathor is symbolized, you see her symbolized as a cow. And you see, if you really look down at the bottom of that, under her udder, that is the Pharaoh receiving milk from Hathor, the protector and provider. That's what that symbolism is. You would also see Hathor symbolized as a woman, and what her headdress, she would have two steer horns coming out of the top of her head. Now we will see that cow again, right? Because what is that cow? The protector. So we will see that appear again. Now, we go to our churches today, and throughout time, we've seen churches, etc., that if we went to a Jewish synagogue, you are not going to find in a Jewish synagogue, there is no statue of Moses. There's no statue of David. There's no picture of David or that. There's no anything else. They use, if you look under, they use geometric designs, etc., and their stained glass, etc. Here, their symbolism up there is the so that's, yeah, I know, I just went out of my head. So you won't find that kind of symbolism in there. You want that, so they don't have that in their synagogues. You go into a mosque, there is no statue of Allah or Muhammad or anything. If you actually made a statue of Muhammad, you'd be put to death. If you worship anything other than God, and God is not symbolized anything else, it's all geometric designs. Now, in Christianity, we've had some challenges. The early church, the first 300 years, we were persecuted, etc. Constantine comes in power, and Constantine wants us to be more like he is bringing the Christians into power, taking the power away from all the Roman gods and Greek gods that are everywhere. But Christian people are the lowest of low. They're not very well dressed, etc. Well, we got to have priestly clothes for them. We can't have them come worship in the catacombs or in their house. They need to be in a nice place, right? So we began to build. Saint Sophia, when in the Byzantine church, began building places of worship all over the place. She would go find all these places and build that. And they began to be filled with icons, images of the people in the Bible, etc. And they began to go collect the relics. Oh, I got St. Stephen's little finger. Let's bring it in and put it under the altar and we'll pray to St. Stephen's. How many of us have had a St. Christopher medal over the years? Even though we're not Catholic. I mean, I've had friends give me, oh, you're traveling, you need a St. Christopher's medal, etc. Pray to St. Christopher. People sell their houses and they put a St. Joseph statue in the ground in front of their house because that helps sell, because you go out and pray to St. Joseph. We are supposed to have no other idols before God, no other images, but we have been troubled by this. So these icons, etc., and by the 7th century, we call the iconoclasm, began a whole movement of just going into churches and destroying all the icons, etc. We will see that continue through in the fact of the starting of our nation. Many of our families fled Europe because of persecution, whether we were Christians and we were fleeing from the Catholics that were persecuting us, or we were Catholics and we were fleeing because the Christians were persecuting us on that. And the Puritans went into churches and stripped them of everything. So you went into a Puritan church, and there are Protestant churches today you go into, and you will not see a cross or any symbolism at all because they're falling back to what is being first told in the second commandment. So it makes you think that I would never have you worship that cross. It's a reminder to us that we're worshiping God and Jesus Christ our Lord as our Savior. So you wouldn't, but there's a fine line we walk. And the Israelites have been worshiping and been before all these other gods. So this is very important for them to understand. Well, the first 4 commandments deal with God, right? This last 6 deal with each other. How are we going to be treated? So he's first thing, here we are, a patriarchal society. Who is the head of the household? The father. The father wills is the patriarchal control of the household is given to his next eldest son. And the household is not only, so the mother and father, or the head of the household, are everything. They're your power. So honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land of the Lord your God is giving you. You don't want them getting rid of you. Little Johnny was bad. I don't know what happened to him. He went outside, never came back. You shall not murder. Now, if you have a translation that says kill, that is wrong. Murder. What is murder? Murder is you had thought about it. You had planned to premeditated. You went to go kill somebody. Murder in first degree. This is what we're talking about. Murder. So it's okay to. I wasn't planning to. I just happened to get no. But that we will get. This is the main principle. We're going to learn more about these principles next. This is why I say it's the principle that you shall not murder. You should not commit adultery. You should not steal. You should not give false testimony against your neighbor. You should not covet your neighbor's house. You should not covet the neighbor's wife or his male or female servant or his ox, his Jaguar, his GMC pickup truck, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor, right? So that's what he's telling them because they're taking them out of the land. So I want you to think about that. So when the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain and smoke, they trembled. Speak to us yourself, and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us, or we will die. I mean, I would be totally scared. I would be like anybody else. You'd be petrified. But Moses says to them, do not be afraid. God has come to test you. God has come to test you. Moses, bring down these 10 commandments. I'm going to see if they can live by these. I'm going to start guiding them so that the fear of God will be in you to keep you from sinning. And the people remained a distance when Moses approached and went up the mountain. So he would go up and come back down. And then Moses tell the Lord, so we hear again, do not make any gods to be alongside me. Do not make yourselves gods of silver or gold, gods of silver or gods of gold. Now, we will see later what happens, right? Because that's what they have witnessed. Everything God is telling them to do, you think they've already done it before? God's not telling them, oh, do not murder. What is that? I have no idea. Don't give false testimony. I always tell the truth. No. So we're getting a polytheistic society again, over 100 gods. Make an altar on earth for me and sacrifice it, the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your sheep and goats. So we began to start seeing the offerings that God is telling instruction what to do. Later we will know how these offerings all work. These are the laws you are set to set before them. So we got to 10, right? Well, now we get into a little more detail. If you have a Hebrew servant, he has served 6 years, he's given more specifics. Or now we're getting the specifics of the laws. If the servant declares, I love my master, my wife and children, I do not want to be free. Well, okay. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, well, Tara, mom's going to sell you as a servant. No, we wouldn't think of that. I can't imagine thinking about that, but this is what they did at this time. That we can't think of. We look at these things, wow, on that. Personal injuries, etc. Anyone who strikes a person with a fatal blow is to be put to death. Now we're applying principle number 6. Do not murder. Well, okay, if someone strikes a person with a fatal blow, put them to death. However, if it's not done intentionally, God lets it happen, they are to flee to a place I will designate. But anyone who schemes and kills someone deliberately, that person will be taken from my altar and put to death. So now we're getting more specifics to these things. If you do this, this is the thing. Take him to a place I expect, take him to a place he designates is to provide so they can get a fair trial. We would call that murder in second or third or fourth degree, whatever. I don't know what the law is as far as that. But if you did not plan to intentionally, et cetera, and all those things. If anyone attacks their father or mother, is to be put to death. Well, how many of us shouldn't be here right now because we got mad at our parents? You know. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession. Yeah, you've taken someone's life from them, and so to speak, as far as what we think of murder, but you also have stolen. So this one sort of crosses two lines, right? So now we're getting into the definition of what the 10 principles are, because God is trying to lead them. And this is the principles for these people. He's trying to bring them together to become a community. That's why I ask you, do these principles belong to us? We know these principles today. We live by them because they're in our laws. And Christ overcame all the laws, right? All the teachings, all the laws and all the teaching of the prophets. Christ overcame all of that and gave us two. If you love God and you love thy neighbor, if you love thyself, are you going to do these things? Even though they're in laws of the nation, you're going to do everything you can. You're going to go above and beyond to show kindness and love and take care of each other. I'm not going to use my power, and we've seen people use their power to sexually abuse or physically abuse, emotionally abuse people. You wouldn't do that. You're going to care for them. So that's why I'm saying this is what God is teaching to the Israelites, and that's what you want to think about. It's how we understand this, because as we journey further, it's understanding how these principles are being brought to them, and we got to understand what they're going to do with them and see. Then we will get down, and we get to Leviticus, shout nots, and we'll get 263 thou shalt do. Other laws, I think, things you're supposed to do. So we anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. This is again applying the principle, honor thy father and mother. So I just want to say, if anybody's come home and yelled at their mom and dad and told them all kinds of bad names and everything else, we probably shouldn't be here, right? It goes on, and people quarrel. If one person hits another in a stone, it goes through all these little things. You read these and you're going, and you have to understand, well, they've been doing this. So God is saying, stop all this behavior, because they have lived in the land of Egypt, and this is what's been acceptable. This is what's been acceptable, and they've grown up 400 years of what has been acceptable, and God's saying, no, this is not acceptable. You are my people. I want you to be an example, a holy nation, example to all other nations of how to live as the people of God, of showing that grace. And I'm going to provide for you, but you need to provide for each other. You need to care for each other. You need to love each other. You also need to worship God. Sounds like the two principles again. So that's what we see. So we jump through and we see, if a bull gores a man or a woman to death, the bulls be stoned to death. We just jump through each one of these things and continue on down. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. That's applying principle number 3. Do not use God's name in vain. Now, vain, it's not, this translation does not use, do not misuse God's name, which is probably more accurate, because a vain, how many times have you used the word vain? What does the word vain mean? What do you think the word means? We think of vain comes vanity. We think of someone using don't be self-involved. It's not all about you when you're vain. It's all about you, right? Now, vain really means, it's a word that means it's empty. It's that don't use nothing words. Don't use emptiness. Do not misuse God's name. Do not use it any other way. So that's why that translation has been changed, because understanding the word has changed over time. do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. Or do not spread false reports. Do not follow. That's again, do not give false testimony. How many people, we follow the crowd? I read this on Facebook, and you know who, let me tell you what so-and-so did and everything else. I saw it on Fox News. I saw it over here. I saw it on NBC. I saw it wherever it was. That announcer was telling me that, Mr. Smith, he may have said, the sky is blue, but he was really thinking. And you're like, you're spreading false rumor. Do you know that for a fact? Don't do that. Do not spread false reports. If you don't know it's for a fact, don't gossip. And that's what he's telling you. And this is our problem today, right? Are we living by this law? If we're going to call this a law and commandment, we're going to put it on the wall of our schools. What are our kids thinking? Yeah, Mom, Dad, those are really cool things to be said. What about the day of rest? Mom, we got to go to the game on Sunday. We got to go to Walmart. We got to go to Target. We got to go to the mall. I need to go to the movies. We got to go out to eat. And this is like Tuesday. That's what I'm saying. If these are commandments, why are we living by them? So I want you to think. It's the principles that are being taught to them that we need to think about and to say, that's what they're being taught. So we get into the Sabbath laws about the thing, the 6 years you sow your fields and harvest. It tells you what the 6 days of you to do to work, but the seventh do not work, so that your ox and donkey may rest, so that you the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Let your car rest on Sunday. That's your ox and donkey. Let it rest in the garage or in the carport in the front yard. Let it rest, right? Yeah, huh? After church, yeah. But that's what you're supposed to do. Let them rest and be refreshed. That's what we're supposed to do. But I'm saying that's what we see. We went through, you saw the festivals. We're going to learn more about the festivals later. But you read the beginning of them. When we start getting into Leviticus and stuff, we're going to learn all about these things. When we get to the tabernacle, we'll begin learning about that. So we're going to sort of skip by these right now as we come down. God's able, I'm sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. So they're going to travel from here. And when we come back next year, this always sounds weird. When we come back next year, we're going to learn about the second gift on that. But we continue on down, and the covenant will be confirmed. Then the Lord said to Moses, come to the Lord and Aaron and the 70 of the elders. You are to worship at a distance. And it says, everything the Lord has said he will do. And then Moses wrote down everything the Lord has said. When we get into Leviticus, we're going to get into great detail about these principles, the laws that will be given. That's what I say, the 365 laws, 263 additional laws of thou shalt do. First 365 of thou shalt not. And they're all things the people are doing. The Lord said that as we come to close to the end, the Lord said, come to me on the mountain and stay here, and I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandments I have written for their instructions. Again, where will the tablets be stored? Just be on as you read ahead, go back and think. This is where they're being told. We're going to see where this is where they've been told to keep them, so they can that. So finally, when Moses went up on the mountain of the Lord, and the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled on it on Mount Sinai, for 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the seventh day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites, the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Then Moses entered the cloud as he went on up up the mountain, and he stayed in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Something might happen when he comes back down, right? So we've seen the movie. There's more to the story. If you've ever watched the Ten Commandments, it ends after they get, let my people go, right? They end after the Ten Commandments. And Charlton Heston comes down, and the movie's over with. Many times we study Exodus, that's where we stop. Well, the law is only part of the two gifts. The first gift is the law. The second gift is going to be the tabernacle. What?
Can we watch it here?
We can watch it. I can get the movie. We can watch it. But we'll make a movie night. We'll watch it. But it's so I'll get that planned. We're actually turning the community room is going to become a theater as well as a study room, and the theater is going to have surround sound. With a big giant screen that used to be in here is going to be in there. So we'll have movies back there, and we'll be like we're putting room darkening curtains up and everything else. And we'll have popcorn and snack bar and everything else. But yeah, you need to see that. So beginning with chapter 25 through 4, we will see the blueprints for the tabernacle. Where is the tabernacle today? What is the tabernacle they're going to create? It's an image of the tabernacle in heaven. It's a way for them to come in before God. How do you go before God now? Do you got to come to me? Do I got to go behind the curtain? I got a curtain. I guess I could go behind there. There's the wall. I'll be standing back there. But no, we go directly to God. You know, Jesus tore the curtain that you're going to see in the tabernacle, and we're going to have a direct connection. But this tabernacle is important for you to learn about it, because you're going to understand everything you're reading in the New Testament, what Jesus is overcoming. So that's it. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying we're seeing these principles that led to the creation of the people, and Jesus is bringing the message not only to them, but bringing the message to us, the Gentiles. So do we live by these, or do we live by what Christ says? And why does our world keep pointing back to what is in Leviticus or in Exodus or in Deuteronomy and not pointing to what Christ says? So that's my question for you to think about. Let's come to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for your presence tonight and for the blessings of we continue this journey. Lord, we've made some fun and joked, but Lord, it's all because you are with us and as we learn about you. And Lord, as we continue into this Christmas season, make it a joyous time. We are anticipating the second coming of your Son. And Lord, we do pray that we're prepared if he does show up, and we're ready and that we'll walk right with him. But Lord, on Christmas morn, make it a day of joy. That we think of that child that you sent into this world, and the fact that how he changed our lives, and the fact that he has brought us closer to you, Yahweh, Elohim, our Lord God. Amen.